And we're back here at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Illinois. I'm joined by Steve Benjamin, Senior Advisor to the President and Director of White House Engagement. Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. So glad to be here.
So the first question that I'm asking just about all of the guests is, why is this election so important to communities of color?
Well, I'll tell you, the story, and I'll talk about African Americans, and quite frankly, the same argument applies to every other community. The story of the African seed and the American son is something that's amazingly important and unique in the history of the world. And when we came into this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, we're talking about the greatest pandemic since 1918 that disproportionately affected black lives and people of color. We're talking about the greatest economic disruption we saw because of COVID, maybe since 1929, and also the greatest social unrest since 1968 after the murder of George Floyd, all come into reality right there. But on day one, President Biden and Vice President Harris made a commitment that equity would be central and core to every single thing they would do. It became a part of the American Rescue Plan that made sure that not only did we get shots in the arms, we saved millions of lives, starting with each and every one of us, made sure working people and those who couldn't socially distance because of the nature of their jobs had PPE and the equipment they needed to keep themselves alive. After we saved lives, we started saving livelihoods. Okay. And as a result, we have 18 million new small businesses, more black businesses started in the last 3 years, in the last 30 years. We watched the racial wealth gap close to its narrowest margin literally in 4 decades. First quarter last year, African-American unemployment, Latino unemployment, Asian unemployment hit record lows since we started disaggregating data over 50 years ago. We're talking about the disproportionate impact of student loan debt. And now over 5 million people have seen $170 billion of student debt forgiven, changing people's lives. I've had men and women come to me and tell me that they couldn't pay for their children to go to college because they were still paying for student loan debt that was hanging over their heads.
Well, when the Obamas tell you that they just finished paying,
I'm telling you, man, it's real.
Right,
I mean, it's real. So the job creation numbers, 16 million new jobs. The focus on racial justice. Congress would not pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. So the president put an executive order in place that put all the elements of the act into law for federal law enforcement agencies. That I know something that if the former president's reelected, he will repeal immediately. So for people who don't realize that everything we do, from our government-issued birth certificate to our government-issued death certificate, everything in between is influenced by the man or the woman who occupies the highest office in the land. This election is critical. It's a clear choice between freedom and democracy and those who seek to have authoritarian rule. So, I mean, I want to encourage people to at very least first vote. Vote, use a franchise that people paid for with blood, sweat, and tears. People gave their lives. You vote your conscience, but if people pay very close attention to the candidates, we will see that we don't only have a chance to make history, we have a chance to make her story. We have a amazingly talented vice president who every single day of her professional life has worked for the people. Her only client have been the people of San Francisco, of California, and the United States of America. And I'm excited and inspired. I'm excited for young ladies like my 2 daughters who have been fighting to make sure in their own way. One's old enough to vote now, the other one's still not old enough yet, but understand that they're growing up in a world in which they have less control, less rights over their body autonomy to make their own healthcare decisions than their mother did or their grandmother did. It's untenable. So it's important to every community, but it's particularly important to communities that have been disinvested in over decades.
2 daughters, one old enough to vote, one not. How important is it to engage the younger daughter to see to it that when she does turn of age, that she already understands the realities that are impacting her immediate life and her future?
Well, so I served, before this job, I served 12 years as mayor of Columbia, South Carolina. I served as president of the U.S. Council of Mayors and President of African American Mayors Association. So our children, and my wife serves as a federal judge. So my children have been surrounded by their parents and grandparents who understand the importance of service and the value of the franchise. So even though my 17-year-old is not yet old enough to vote, she registers to vote. She gets out. She volunteers in every which way she can. She realizes again that that but for her zip code or opportunities that her parents have had, that there are opportunities that she just wouldn't have. And so she makes sure that every other kid in every other zip code has the same opportunities that she has. I will tell you, I'm very encouraged and inspired by this young generation. They don't usually fall in along clear lines of blue and red, but they're deeply committed to a better world, a cleaner world, where climate change is real and a true existential threat. They want peace, not war. They want everyone to have a chance. Yes, a meritocracy, but also someplace that has a true social safety net that works like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris do to drastically reduce the cost of medicine, so people don't have to make a decision of spending $1,000 a month on insulin versus $35 a month to keep themselves alive. So my daughters, thank God, they get it, and I'm encouraged that the younger generation gets it, but understanding the power of that vote, and that voteless people are hopeless people.
Monday night was the first night, the kickoff for the convention. What stood out to you? What resonated? Were there any particular points or highlights that stood out and resonated with you?
I thought all the speeches were great. I love Raphael Warnock, Senator Warnock. Jasmine Crockett gets young people fired up. I will tell you that my children adore the Congresswoman. But the president was a highlight of it. I mean, having the opportunity to serve the people of this country under President Biden in our office of public engagement, represents the front door of the White House. I say we represent the sacred trust that the president has with civil society, the men and women that he serves. And to see this man who has literally given his entire adult life to serve in this country and helped rescue this country 4 years ago, to show the ultimate sacrifice, and step aside. When he knows in the deepest of his hearts and in his bones that he felt he could win again, but he thought it was the best thing for the country and the best thing for the party that would insist that his policies remain in place. It was in their best interest that he step aside. That is amazing show of character and humility and sacrifice. And watching him articulate that while at the very same time being Joe's a fighter. So he's landing some blows, but he also very clearly and articulately, a week or two after the Olympics, passed the baton onto this amazingly talented vice president that he's put in place, and we're excited about it.
So I'm going to ask you to look into this camera. I'm going to ask you what are the two salient points that you want this audience to understand about this upcoming election and why they need to participate?
Well, the reality is that this is your country. And I think it's so important to know that this country is a country built on the blood, sweat, and tears of men and women of all backgrounds, of every persuasion, who sacrificed and made sure that every generation would do better than the last generation. We are literally layers of brick in a foundation. We stand on the shoulders of great men and women who built this country. It's our job now to present our soldiers to preserve this great republic. So I want to encourage you to vote. I can't tell you who to vote for. I live on this side of the Hatch Act, so I'll be very careful about that. But I want to encourage you to vote and participate in this process and make sure that we protect our freedoms and that we continue to create opportunities for every single child of God in this country to have a chance to do the great things that God has in store for them.
Stephen, Benjamin,
yes, sir.
My brother. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Folks, we're here at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Politics in Color is where you are. Politics in Color is where you need to stay. Join the conversation. You know how to do it. There's more. Stay tuned.